Over a year ago, the Lord started to talk to me about Him fulfilling His promise to give us our own apartment. He showed me that He would take us really high over to a different land and then back again before it would happen. In the vision, there was a zip line that went from one place to another that was super high above the mountains. And I had to hold on to the handles, and then it carried me to the other side and then back again. It was so high in the air that I knew it was incredibly dangerous. I didn't have my hands all the way on, so God held my hands to hold me securely on the zip line. So I knew that before God fulfilled our promise of an apartment of our own, that we would cross over something huge. Then back in July of 2023, the Lord woke me up at 5 in the morning from our Airbnb in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And He said, "Follow me through the aspen trees to the place of tangible hopes." We were scheduled to check out that morning, and I had very little money left. I had been waiting on a refill to cover where God would lead us next. And much to my surprise, God ended up leading us to another state where one of my daughters would soon be starting college. I only had enough money for about one night in a hotel and some gas. So by faith and hope, I followed God to Illinois, and I put us in a hotel for one night. Thankfully, from there, God refilled us, and He has been covering our room and food needs ever since, even when there was no possible way to survive. For those who don't know my story, you can find more about it at diamondsfromthedust.com, but God has led me to a place of living by faith for His financial support. So everything I receive for survival comes through His heart to fulfill that promise from various ways. Sometimes, a lot of times, it's a donation or a sale from something on my store or some other unique, different way that God has come through. The path that God has had us on was winding at first. We stayed in many different hotels and cities on the outskirts of Chicago, and it was terrifying because there were times when it didn't seem like we would survive. There were many last-minute rescues and very scary-looking situations. All I had was Jesus and my promises from Him. And I had my car taken away from me twice during this journey, and then God would rescue me and give it back. This journey has really shown me God's intentional love and ever-present rescue to fulfill His promise more than anything ever before. And for the past 4 months, God kept us in the same little hotel where we would catch our breath. But our room was scheduled to expire soon, and God showed me that the path to promise ahead would start to become a winding road with twists and turns as we slowly made our way back to Michigan and into our promised home. God showed me that if I continued to go straight by staying at the same place and staying in my comfort zone, then we would fall off the cliff that He had us on, and it would be the end of life. When there's no way to survive, then you don't survive, unless God, of course, rescues you. We are only protected as long as we stay on the path of God's will, and I learned that the hard way already, and I had to be rescued. So I started to pray about what was next, and God showed me that He would take us to an Airbnb that was in the city of Chicago, which was intimidating to me. But then God gave me a promise that $2,500 would come for us to go. However, I was suddenly stuck because after looking at the Airbnbs for a month, I realized there was nothing in that price range, and I also had a monstrous car payment that was due in order to keep my car from being taken again. And because it had been taken twice already, the payment that they required of me was very steep. And because of the unique situation, and the car payment being so massive, but it was still more affordable than renting a car for a month, so I really couldn't complain. It was the path that God had me on, and staying on His path is the only way to survive. Then God started to show me Ephesians 3:20 and how He can do more than I can pray, ask, or think, according to His power working with my faith. God showed me a formula to get an answer to prayer that I needed. And God put it in my heart to ask Him for double the amount that He promised. So it would be 2,500 plus 2,500 equaling 5,000. He showed me that it would be His love that would do it. But He also showed me that it was a faith math test. So I knew that the outcome was only going to happen if I passed the faith test. The formula that God gave me to see the answer to prayer was a 3-step process. The first step was jolt. The jolt meant to stir myself up with excitement and alertness to believe that God was going to give me the $5,000 that I prayed for to get the Airbnb for a month and pay for my car. To go into the jolt phase meant to have an awareness that my prayer was for sure being answered, and that we would be going to the Airbnb and I would be able to pay my car. We wouldn't lose it. So once I had figured out the detail of what I was praying for, I started to imagine that it happened and I made plans to move. And that's something that's really important when you are praying. You want to have detail. You want to have something you can go into. You want to paint a picture by faith that you can imagine with detail. So it's important to put detail. It's like putting frosting all over the vision of what you want to see God do. Without vision, people perish. If you cannot go into detail of how you would like it to look like, of what you want God to do for you, then it's very hard to harness your faith. Because when you're praying, you need to believe that it has already happened. But how do you believe something that's already happened if you can't see it clearly? So anytime that I need to do something by faith, the very first thing I do is I ask God to give me detail. God, show me what you could do for me. Show me how things could be. Show me the next step. Put light on what I can pray for. I always ask God to show me and give me detail, to inspire my vision, to inspire my faith, to inspire my prayer. It was so fun to plan and feel the excitement that God came through to save us with His love. It was literally pain relief. Because doing this was in direct contrast with what I was going through. In reality, my room was about to expire. I had no money and nowhere to go. Didn't know anyone in the area. I knew that if I didn't pay my car, they would come take it the same day, and we would be out on the streets. Remember, I'm in a different state with literally no way to survive except for my faith and trust in God's promise to be our home and our support. We were also almost out of food, and I didn't think we could last more than a couple more days with what there was. It didn't look like any money was coming in, so I couldn't even look at logical. But I thought about how much God loved us and how He promised these two things. He said, "You will always eat well, and I will be your home." So I chose to think thoughts of love and not thoughts of fear. The next step in the formula was to stay. To stay meant to hold those thoughts and feelings of faith until it happened. Most people give up just before they see the breakthrough. I had to hold those emotions of love and excitement about moving and having the freedom to eat and pay my bills with enthusiasm and confidence that God would not hurt us or let us down. The staying part is the hardest part because we have no idea how long it could go. The last phase is stick. That meant that the prayer is answered and it has stuck to the vibrations of faith and trust in God that I was putting out. One of the ways to get an answer to your prayer to stick is to look for signs of hope and keep yourself energized and excited along the way. So I would look for signs like Elijah looking for a small cloud while praying for rain from God. Just a little sign, a tiny sign, can be just what you need to push yourself all the way into wholehearted, undoubted belief that you have what you have asked for, and that is guaranteed to happen. It's biblical, it's guaranteed when you don't have any doubt or uncertainty. All the power was in God, but He only moves towards those who are using all their energy and trust to believe in His love and goodness, because in James it says, someone who prays back and forth between doubt and faith will never see the answer to their prayers. They just get tossed at sea. You need to be all in. You need to be all into faith or all into fear. But being lukewarm doesn't do anything. It's back and forth. So you have to stay in a place of being all the way in. During all of this, I had to resist all the thoughts of fear and doubt that would come my way. And I had to try not to look at the cliff that was just ahead of me if we didn't have the money to pay for the next room or keep the car. Then, very suddenly and out of nowhere, God came through. And He answered my prayer for double of what He promised. He promised me $2,500 to get the Airbnb for a month and pay my car. But that wasn't enough. I needed twice that amount to do what God was telling me to do. If God is going to send you somewhere and He tells you where to go, then you have to know that He's going to provide where He guides. But I had to use my faith in God's promise in Ephesians 3:20 to get what was needed to cover my needs. God honored my prayer for double, and we moved into a beautiful Airbnb yesterday, and I paid my car. The Airbnb that God told me to get happened to be next to my daughter's dorm, and I didn't even know that until after I paid for it. Being unfamiliar with the area, I just went to the place that God highlighted to me, and I didn't really know where it was. Chicago is a pretty huge place, so it could have been very far away. I couldn't believe the details of how God maneuvered things to get us in the path of His promise. And I'm so thankful to have a real bed and an oven. We've not had the comforts of a home since we left Michigan over 9 months ago. And I've been so thankful that God saved us and gave us a little taste of home. I've been crying gratitude to have a home, or at least feel the comfort of a real home. It's like sweet ice cream on a hot day, a spoonful of sugar that takes the pain away. I'm so overwhelmed at God's love, too. Not only did He save us from death, but He gave us the comfort we deeply craved so much. It wasn't a necessity. It was a heart longing. And God honored that heart longing, just how He honored Hannah's request for a baby. She didn't need a baby, but she desired a baby. If you really want to break through into promise, then you need to forget the worldly limits that you see, such as how much your next direct deposit is, or how much is supposed to be coming for you to pay your bills. You gotta stop looking at how things look, and instead look at the power of God and the dream about how much you hope He will send you, or how much you hope He will do for you. And take the limits off of how God can support you, or how God can make this miracle happen. It's not going to look possible, and it's not going to look like there's a way. But as long as you stay in the limits of how things look and seem, then you are keeping yourself from accessing the realm of miracle faith. Above all things, choose to believe in God's love for you, and that He wants to answer your prayers because He loves you. Be immersed in His love for you, and be thankful in His love for you. You start at the end of what you want to see happen, and you imagine that you're already there, and you allow yourself to feel that gratitude, that it's already happened. Because God said when you believe that it has already happened, then it'll be done for you. He doesn't rescue us with the answered prayer because we're so strong in faith, but because He's so strong in love. Asking God for more than what He promised, or what you think will come, is a decision to believe that He loves you enough to joyfully say, "Yes, my child." Choosing to believe that God wants to give you the outcome of hope is also a choice to believe that He loves you and is willing and able to come through to do what you have prayed for. A little girl who has confidence in her dad's love for her will ask Him without guilt or shame for all those things that she dreams to have. She doesn't feel guilty for it because she knows that she is immensely loved, and that He loves her to give her the best gifts. If we, as full of flaws and fears and judgments against others, still love to give our kids the very best gifts, how much more does the Father also love us and give us, who is perfect? He loves to give us the requests that we have in our heart, and He loves that we come by faith in God and trust in His love. My beautiful friend, you are so loved. So show up as a much-loved child of God when you pray, and know that He will do even more than you can dare to believe. I love you, and thank you for spending time celebrating the love of God. If it was not for God's love, we would have never survived this. I can barely even go a day without crying gratitude that He saved our life. When you put it down on paper and look at it from a logical place, there's no way we should have survived all these years. When God asks me, forgive me, I don't remember if it was 6, 7, 8 years, but when God asked me to go to that hotel room in Florida with just enough money for a night in a hotel, with no car, no way to survive, He rescued us because He loves us. And He gave us this promise because He loves us. And the secret, one of the reasons God said that He chose me for this, to share His miracle love through these situations, it was because He said I was barren, so I was chosen to show His power through the fulfillment or birth of promises. I was the least likely to survive. When you look at my circumstances, I had nobody on my side. I had no way to support myself. I had situations that were very unique that made it so it was impossible for me to go out and get a job or to be able to get a place of my own without having a proof of income, or there were so many things against me. And then there were so many attacks of the enemy against my name and reputation, turning people away from the ministry. It was all that witchcraft coming against, trying to murder us, trying to make it so we couldn't survive. There was no way for us to survive. All these years, without having an income, without having a home, often without having a car. And all I had was hope and trust that God loved us. And believing in His love is what saved us. He didn't save us because of how much I loved Him. He saved us because of how much He loved us. And that's why every day I lay my life down before Him and I share what He tells me to share. And I go where He tells me to go. And I step out of my comfort zone and publicly share my details as a complete 100% introvert. Because He saved my life. And because He saved my life, I've given Him my life. I cannot even express my gratitude with words that can describe the love that God has shown to save our life from death during this time and to give us homes and places to stay. And not only did He give us homes, but He showed us so much love and comfort. He protected us, and He never once let my kids suffer or get hurt. And nothing was more important to me than that. And there was also nothing I was more afraid of than them getting hurt. I didn't care what happened to myself. Not so much as I cared what happened to my kids. They were my most valuable treasure. And to trust God not to hurt my kids, and to give them a home, and to give them comfort, was the biggest sacrifice of trust I could have ever given. And not once did He hurt them, and not once did they suffer. They've never went hungry. They've never went without a home. God has rescued us over and over and over again because of His love. So if you choose to believe in anything, don't believe in the limits that say that you're not going to have enough to do what you need to do. Don't believe in the impossible things that stand in the way from you having your dream or answer to prayer. Believe that God loves you and that He will do far more than you can hope or dream or imagine.